much?
All right.
There we go.
You're gonna have to.
What's that?
You gotta like turn on some software. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know where he's going. I'll be in Biloxi
Aaron can reach.
playing golf, but
I asked him the other day.
yeah, that's what he said. I'm like, oh fuck. You know, we got down to a science now, but we'll give you the garage.
Another body bag, too.
Good, how are you, Chad? Better than
Mar-
Bill? If I'm ready.
Marlon said someone was here today and checked it.
Over the trash bag and the other parts of the body bag. But, yeah, so we just give you the garage code and
And so I contact with Matt.
figured you probably would rather be.
It felt like a Monday all day, I'll tell you that
Got
much.
it down pat now. We can get
Son of
do
a
it.
bitch.
We're taking about 33 minutes.
He said if we have to.
I just drive my truck.
I worked all weekend, so to me it's like a Thursday.
He's taller than I am, so you gotta sit on the back.
But I thought he might have fixed it. But
Tomorrow's my last day this week.
Water.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's about 4 of
I
them.
wish I could say that.
Well, I already put 32 hours in.
Check. Yep, that's.
It's only Monday, it's only Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Did you work all weekend?
Yeah.
Before I forgot, I won't let you.
Okay, why is it doing
Yeah.
that now?
You deserve it. Take next week off too.
I am taking a few days. That's not what I wanted to do.
That's,
Well, it's like making a spotlight.
Good yourself.
I don't need. I barely even need.
Okay.
As long as I can get it to go backwards and forwards.
It's gonna be fun.
I think so.
Hi, Chad.
You got an
Doing?
agenda and all that.
How about you?
Great.
Yeah, I figured I'd read that later. And I missed the last one. Boy.
Take care of it.
Executives?
No.
Probably.
I'm just happy to get out of here. I stay in the shack.
I mean, everyone needs a raise.
Oh, I agree. Stay in there, man.
Everyone needs a raise.
How you doing, Mark?
But when you,
Every,
All right, Mark.
and you know,
yeah.
No key, no key.
Yeah. It seems like it's working. I don't want to touch that. Okay, where was I? Here we go.
Sparks and magic working. There we go. Good job, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Wayne.
Nobody coming tonight?
huh?
Nobody coming tonight?
Oh, I think, well, I know Al's gonna be here for sure. I would think Hydra should be here.
Talk far away.
What's this all about, buddy? Is that our packet?
That ML,
Yeah.
MML. You going?
I am. I take it you are too.
Yeah.
I guess Mr. Hydrich isn't, huh?
He wasn't, but he needs to be here for that planning and zoning meeting on the homeless deal. I think.
Oh. Huh. Yeah.
Old man. How you doing?
All right. Hey, Al.
All right, Mark. No idea what all this shit means.
It somehow just tracks.
Okay, dude. How's this gonna go down? Are we gonna get to that or not? Or
Okay, thanks.
So you shouldn't have
takes care of it.
charge for any.
I'm sure of that. I need to.
Me too. That's why I ain't worried about it.
What? Hey, Joe. Glad they got a couple players on this team.
Yeah, finally.
I'm looking forward to it, Mark. It's gonna be fun.
I'll be the one that hits the first shot. Mine ain't gonna matter. I might putt a little bit.
You don't know that yours isn't gonna matter.
Huh? Completely different. But just my own place, big time.
I played that. You said it was.
Yeah.
We played it.
Yeah.
I didn't think you played that. We saw his singular.
Yeah, it's just.
Nobody got hurt.
No. I didn't lose any balls. I had to.
Mayor, how are you?
Yeah, I know. It was Darren.
That one thing he pulled. I know. Like, hey Jeff.
Neither. Neither.
Yeah, but well, how are you?
Good.
Okay, so you're out of town. So I need to sit in for. So what are we doing first? Okay. What days are you going? Or how long are you doing?
Well, I leave Saturday. Let me sit down and talk to you. Hi, Chad.
He's leaving.
I leave Saturday.
1,500
We weren't planning on being gone until the 18th,
Saturday.
which is Sunday.
Mary's gonna be down.
Okay.
He's leaving
Come up
tomorrow.
after your company.
Fly free on the Huh? Jeff's not
They
going.
won't be
He'll be here.
I got you. I'm coming back.
He's still gotta be Mariposa.
Tuesday
Some
night.
catastrophe happens, and he's
Away
gotta,
from my family.
he's gotta
So,
go.
because this company wanted
He couldn't be up there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All the mayors and all the cities, and all the councilmen are all gonna be at this.
Okay. Nobody leaves anybody at home.
No, that's fine. Always goes, there's blackjack.
Anyway, to answer your question, I'm planning
All
on being
black.
back
all-
19th, which is
Is that right?
You'll pick them. They wear red,
P&Z.
loud
We
as
go to that
Okay.
because that's going to be
and the rest of them.
Well,
It's all changed around,
I can go in here and get it.
all changed around.
I'll get it on here. That's fine. Cool. I just want to make sure that I need to sit here for that. Yeah.
I'll have to catch you. I met with him today.
Yeah.
You, so, that's what, 2 weeks from now?
Planning and zoning next Monday, and then
Are
us.
you going to?
I'm going to planning and zoning. Doug's going to be gone. Did that one? No, he's going to California.
I got a wedding out in California.
Well, how you doing?
Go sweat a little bit out there. We're going to Sacramento. Today's high there's 150.
Really?
Holy cow. Crazy.
Wow.
It gets like that.
That's unseasonable, isn't it, though?
Very.
Yeah. I didn't think that was.
Horrible.
Some of them are good.
Okay.
Are you?
At K-State.
Wow.
We always take one trip every year.
Away from Furrow.
Yeah.
Be here midway through.
Should be a good one. I mean,
I hope so. We'll see. I hope it's a good one. The last couple we went to haven't been too good.
right?
Went to Kentucky, they got beat. Went to Wyoming, they got beat. We've been to Vanderbilt. We've been to Vanderbilt twice and Tennessee once, and they won both of those, or all 3 of those games. So it's kind of crap.
Mark?
The what? Oh yeah.
Council workshop meeting Tuesday, September 6, 2022, 6 p.m. Bear,
Here.
Briggs,
Here.
Coulter,
Here.
Hydrich,
Here.
Holtmeyer,
Here.
Patke,
Here.
Reed,
Yep.
Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty liberty, and justice for all.
Will all the committee members answer if they have not read the minutes of the meeting dated August 1st, 2022? Bear?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Wessels? I just need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Holtmeyer, second by Patke. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Go ahead.
Re- Report of department heads, administration department budget highlights.
Okay. Last council meeting, or actually our special workshop that we had at the second meeting in August or whatever, we went through a little PowerPoint, but we also incorporated again the budget highlights for those of you to see if you had any questions with regards to it. I think the crux of our conversation at the workshop had to do with employee wages or whatever, and I'm going to go into that again if you don't mind, because there are some of our employees I think are here that were not here at the last meeting, et cetera, and I know Mike wasn't here for the wasn't able to join us at the last meeting, so I'll go through those quickly. So at the end, if we have any questions though about anything else on the budget highlights that was not brought up, or you want to bring up again, that's what this meeting's for. So if there's something in there, just let us know. But we're going to go ahead and go back into the wages, and again, what I'm going to do is I've added a couple slides at the end, try to address some of the concerns that I heard at the last meeting that we had. But again, I apologize to those of you that have sat through this already. This is the graph that we pulled off of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is the CPI indicator for St. Louis, the metropolitan area, from June 2019 through June 2022. Purpose of this slide is to make sure everybody's aware. CPI has been over 8% since approximately November of 21. So that's what we've been kind of dealing with, and I think that's what we had indicated to you at the last meeting. On wages, on a history of how we got from point A to point B, June is the magic month, if you will. It's just the month that we use to go ahead and look at, because we start preparing the budget for you and getting that together for the workshop. This is a history of the wages and how the city has gone through that. And if you can bear with me again, I will go through these. So from in 2017, you had a full compensation study that was completed at that time for the city. This did a review of all job descriptions within interviewed employees. It also went ahead then and then took other cities, sample cities from around the state of Missouri, to try to take a look at what should the wages are, what's the market rate of those positions. So we did not have a cost of living at that time. We did not have a merit. It was all based on this full compensation study. As you can see, the CPI at that time was relatively still low. It was 1.2. But that full compensation study, what needs to be pointed out was that prior to that, I really don't even know when the last time we had a full-blown compensation study. It must have been like 10 years. There had been attempts to go ahead and bring wages up to that point in between that time, but not a contract with somebody else to go ahead and look at it professionally and give the city what they felt the market rates were. Unfortunately for that took about 2.5 years for us to go ahead and be able to implement. So remember that number, because that's part of the concern of why we're talking about the CPI, what we're dealing with today. But it did take about 2.5 years for us to fully implement that. The next year, though, you had CPI indicator. Okay, this thing's kind of funky. All right, CPI indicator of 1.6. There was no salary study. There was a COLA, cost of living increase of 2.1, and we had a 0.9 on merit. And so that was a total of 3%. So that merit was based upon, again, the performance evaluations. I'm going to get into a little bit more about those in a little bit, just to give you that's some added information that we didn't have from last month. June 18 to 2019, you had a 1% CPI, you had a COLA of 1.8 and a merit of 1. So a total of 2.8 available. Really low on CPI, 0.2 from 19 to 20. Again, COLA 1, merit was 2 that year, so we had an increase. So of merit, so there was a little bit more flexibility within wages amongst the employees depending upon how they performed. 2020, 2021, we had the benchmark study. This is when you saw the CPI start to climb. It was 6.1 in June of 21. We did not provide for a cost of living. We did have a 3% merit at that time. The benchmark study went back. It was not the full-blown compensation study because we did not ask them to go ahead and take a look at individual job descriptions. They did not have to review those. They took all our job descriptions and basically went back out to the market, so it didn't cost us as much to go ahead and get the follow-up study. But as you can see, we try to do that every 3 to 4 years so that we don't sit there and slip behind with wages for the employees. So the idea was, and so we will probably approach you with the market, and again, it's important to note, next year's budget, we're going to be looking at incorporating that study in there again. And we'll go out for proposals and see what firms we get to come back and kind of rate. And I'm sure we will invite, the mayor will sit there and invite maybe a couple of council members to sit on that committee to who to pick as we move forward with that process. But the idea is not to fall behind, and that's how you do it. So you get to the magic number of where we're at today, 8.4 for June of 22. That gives you a little bit of the wage history of what we've been dealing with since 2017. You can see the sales tax growth by year that goes from 17 all the way down to 21, 22. You can see the last 2 years that we've been above 7%. Started creeping up a little bit and almost close to 4%, 19 and 20. So just to kind of give you an idea of that you do have sales tax that's available. That's helped. So this is a couple of slides I wanted to get into that talks a little bit more about than what we discussed last time. So we do have performance evaluation reviews because I think that there was some discussions about with regards to why not have merit-based. And again, the reason why we had not proposed a merit on this time was that 8% is a pretty high number. That's kind of unheard of. We hadn't seen that before. And so the idea was, well, maybe we need to just go ahead and meet CPI this year and not do merit because we didn't really feel like we wanted to go ahead and push the budget to the point where we wanted to have merit on top of that. But the idea was always to strive to hit the cost of living if the budget would allow us to. So, but to give you a little bit about our merit-based raises, what you see is there is, to the left is the ratings and how we go. We have a rating system that basically goes from 1 up to 5. You can see the different categories, but basically anywhere between the middle column that you see of 3 all the way out to 5, that's either meeting job requirements, exceeding job requirements, or they're doing outstanding. And so every year your department heads go through and review all of your employees for they give them a employee evaluation and go through, and this formula will spit out a number. It is based upon 5 core competencies that we started with back in 2017, and that's 70% of the total of that grade, and then the other 30% is based upon performance goals that whatever the department head might have set out for that individual employee. So that's all that goes into it. So it's a little bit more, not just one performance evaluation fits all. There is some individual kind of goals that we have for them. So again, we said in 17, a consultant was contracted to review all job descriptions and conduct a salary study. Consultant worked with city to implement uniform annual performance evaluations. This is something we paid for extra because at that time we were not. I think the police department had their own system. We had some other departments that had theirs. I will tell you this, when I took my position, department heads had not had a performance evaluation in my history of working for the city. It was just, that's the way it was. They would give it to other employees, but administration would never go ahead and do that and give that feedback back to those on a regular basis back to the department heads. That just didn't happen. So we started making sure that that was going to happen because they're no different than anybody else. As a matter of fact, it's probably more important for the department heads just as anybody. So they conduct the performance evaluations for all employees, and when they do that on an annual basis, and it's usually this time of year right before the budget starts. And merit increases are given based on evaluation scores. So I will give you an example. This hasn't been for every year, but if we sit there and say we have 2% merit increase, you can sit there and create a dividing line sometimes where we would sit there and say, okay, all employees that score between 3 to 3.99 get 1%. Anything from exceeds going up to outstanding gets the full 2% merit. It all depends on what their scores are. And I will tell you, after looking at scores over 5 years, we have seen, and if you fall less than 3, that's when department heads need to be working with those employees, and there's either a performance improvement plan that they need to be working on every 90 days rather than sit around and wait another year. It means you're not meeting, you know, the expectations of meeting the minimum job requirements of what the city expects of you. And so there's usually some type of performance improvement plan that's in place if you're scoring that low. And what we've seen, though, over those 5-6 years has been that the number of employees scoring less than that 3 has been kind of weeded out. It's worked to where, and granted, it's you know, those are subjective between the department head, but again, you're dealing with core competencies, there's a score there, and again, job performance goals that they've got for those, and so all of that gives you an individual number, but what we've seen is these scores have readily increased. What maybe we had maybe 6 to 10 in here maybe the first couple of years, you're down to maybe a couple maybe that might be right around the 3 mark, you know, or maybe right below it if at all. So that's good news. We've seen that, you know, as a result of this. And again, I gave over these examples. We've got a 2%. This is just an example. Again, this isn't anything. It's just a score of 3.0. A score of 3.0 or greater is required for a merit increase. 1% if you fall within that, and then another full 2% if you fall within the other. So just to give you a little bit, because there was some discussion about I'll use the terms that some of the council members, I think Councilman Reed used the term of weak links, et cetera, within city staff. We did some research today to go ahead and take a look up to see how many, and again, with regards to performance evaluations, maybe there was employees not meeting expectations, et cetera, and we had some that were on performance improvement plans that just couldn't pass that 90-day test, or et cetera. But that's the numbers of people that were involuntarily terminated. This is not people that were given an option to go ahead and resign even. These are the people that were involuntarily terminated. And that's how many you had. You had 4 employees from 11 to 2017. Last 5 years, 12. So I wanted to make, I know that that's something, and that number kind of even shocked me that it was that high, to be quite honest, but I mean, that's what we've done in probably the last 5 years since we've done these performance. So that gets to your weak link. And yeah. I wanted to go ahead and address that to you so that you could see how we've done that. Of course, I'm not going to go into details. That's about as much as I can tell you. And again, there was some discussions about the option of omitting management or salary positions from the proposed adjustment in the sense of maybe, and not all of it, I understood that, but the idea was that maybe they wouldn't get the full, maybe people at a certain salary level should only go ahead and theirs maybe be only 4 to 5% or 6%, maybe everybody else below that should be qualified for the full 8. The concerns that we have about that, and that's what I'm going to try to address with this slide. All employees' buying power for their wages should be equal when it comes to cost of living. I mean, everybody still has to go out, and it's still, you know, like I said, somebody doesn't get a discount on bread because they make more money or something along those lines. It's all the same thing. But employees have advanced their way to management positions based upon education, experience, and performance. And when we omit those employees from the proposed cost of living, it kind of gives them the idea that they should not rely upon future costs of living adjustments based on the market in the future. If this concept were implemented, those employees would look elsewhere for employment with other cities or in the private sector after a while because they've hit that plateau. And if they're only there for 3 or 5 years and their buying power isn't the same as when it was when they first got the promotion, they may be taken off and going to work those are the ones that we see that may go work for another city or in the private sector. And I'll give you an example. I mean, we just had quite a few increases with a lot of promotions within your police department right across the street because after Chief Menifee retired, then like I said, you could just see the natural progression and how we move through there. Well, a lot of those were all based upon how they interviewed, what they've done in the past in their positions, how they've shown leadership, et cetera. I just don't, my concern is that if you freeze that at some point, and I'm not saying that you're proposing to freeze it, but even if you give less than maybe what you do workers for like maybe a maintenance worker one, that's fine for them for a while, but then after a while, they're gonna maybe start looking at it and say, well, maybe I need to go look for some other, advancement some other place. That's a concern that we have. And I think that what you're gonna see is, in the community, I think what we have today is, we've always had planning and vision with this community. It started way back with economic development and how we move, and it's just not shoot from the hip type politics that got us there. And so that vision is designed and implemented through the continuity of leadership. And if stagnated, it could result in excessive turnover of staff. Excessive may be the wrong word, but you're gonna have turnover of staff. And I think that's the part that we're concerned with. And this approach is not what made Washington what it is today. I think that's been kind of proven. I think what we would like to see, and I understand that, like I said, we understood well that number was something of a shocker, because I think everybody, when they start looking at those graphs, it's kind of like, wow. But we can all see that it's not a sharp spike. I think what we're concerned with is if you do not do something this year that puts those salaries up there, when we go back to the study in a year from now, like I told you that we'd be looking to incorporate next year's budget, and that study gets out, what we don't want is a 2 to 3 year window to try to implement that. You're continually behind, and that's what we're concerned with. So I know that hopefully that answered maybe a few questions from the last meeting that we had. I just wanted to go ahead and, like I said, add those extra slides, open to discussion, and certainly after we talk about wages, if there's anything else on the budget highlights, because your hearing is on September the 19th. It's at your next council meeting. And at that meeting, we do expect to go ahead and pass the budget in time to go ahead and implement it by October the 1st. So, any questions?
Darren, were you able to find out what some of the larger companies in town are doing?
What I've heard is this, Mark. It's basically been the other companies have approached it piecemeal. They don't. It's not like, what makes it a little bit different with the public sector is that usually we'll sit there and talk about this once a year when we adopt a budget. I have seen years where we said, hey, let's wait and see what sales tax is doing. We'll let one quarter go, and then maybe after January, we'll implement, maybe we'll do this now for the first start of the budget year, but then we'll look in January about doing another bump. We've done that. The city's done that. But we're kind of, we're static in that. We only do that, once a year, basically. Whereas every time I've talked with other industries or whatever, they're looking at this on a quarterly basis, or it depends on how many positions they have at this. They'll go ahead and adjust it. If they got to hire in a welder at this price, well, then they may look at it and say, okay, we got to bring all the welders up to this price, or we're going to go ahead and just take a look at how many of those positions do we have. Let's increase that just to go ahead. They're much more flexible with the market, whereas we're not. So as far as numbers go, no, I have not seen, I guess they don't do it on just a one-time shot over a year. They may do a series of jumps throughout the year to my total 6 to 8%. Is what I've heard on some.
Yeah, asking around a little bit, I ran into the same thing, but it might have been a 3% on this quarter and then 3%. But that's what I'm saying. What it amounts to over the year, is it in there? Again, I think it's a difficult situation that you're in, because we do want to keep the best, and we've got excellent staff, and we want to keep them that way. I'm just afraid I guess it's an issue with the city, with the taxpayer, if they're seeing, hey, we got a 2% over the last year, and they're going 8%. It's just a pure number situation. But I'm still curious as to what that would come out to be on a yearly basis for.
Well, as those industries they're not as transparent as we are, and so they don't always like to necessarily share those numbers. But there's been some industries, though, that I've talked, and I'm sure there's enough of you up here that are working that can share what you've experienced and what you've seen, so.
Something I got is that if we do this, 8% across the board,
If you did that, yeah, okay.
and that comes up to about another $500,000 a year.
Correct, I'd probably get closer to 6 to give you an
Yeah.
accurate.
I don't necessarily have a question for you, but what I would like is a show of hands, how many people that work for the city in the room right now?
Probably get a lot.
Very good. How many of you live in the city of Washington? Not everybody. So my job, our job, is to answer the people who live in the city of Washington. And I want everybody to get a raise. Contrary to everybody's belief, I do. Cost of living, then some. But this monkey's been dropped on our back up here, and I think that the city department heads should work more on a merit system. And myself, I'm not worried about losing the weakest link, okay? I'm worried about the best guy that we got leaving because the weakest link's gonna get the same raise he's gonna get. That's what I worry about. It's hard to spit out whenever you're a good worker and the guy beside you, and I'm not going anywhere with this other than the fact, you know what I'm talking about, and I think it's wrong. I want everybody here to get a raise. But I think that you need to know where we're coming from here, and I think where you're coming from. You people deserve it. But I think instead of dropping this monkey on our back, the city should do their job and do the merit system to some extent here and not wear blinders. And what they're asking us to do is go across the board. And I'm not in favor of going across the board. I may very well lose this, but I'd like to see some of you guys get 10%, and maybe somebody else get 6 or 4. I don't know. I want you to get a cost of living increase, and I want you, depending on your department heads, be evaluated and get it. Somebody gets 10. I don't care, but that's just how I feel. And I don't know if I'm alone in this deal or not, but I'm not afraid to speak my piece, and that's how I feel. I got to listen to the citizens of Washington and Ward 1, and if they don't like it, they know what to do in April. I'm not scared.
Dwayne, I think some of it's right what you're saying, but we got to remember we're only here 3 times a month. We don't know what goes on as a city in the big scheme of things, like being in construction. You know, you're in this job site. You know what's going on in your job site. We don't. We got to trust our administration. If they say we need 8%, that's what we have to give them. If we don't do that, people are going to go elsewhere. Half these people can go anywhere else and work for more money than what we're going to give them.
I don't think that Dwayne's denying that. I don't think that we as a council, to me, sitting up here as a council, I think we should be voting on a total percentage amount that goes into the budget. I don't think we need to be caught in the weeds, what Jim makes and what Joe makes. That's up to the department heads. I'm in Dwayne's camp in one respect, and the world I come from is not a based stamp, here you go. Some portion of that should be based upon how they're doing. And, you know, I'm sitting here in my first year. I hear a lot of, we need to hire and we need to keep folks at that opening grade. So that tells me maybe some more needs to be spent there at the bottom. And how we get that, I don't know. Is that, you know, I took a dart and I threw it, you know, thanks Shauna for sending me all the information. Took a dart and I threw it at what I would do in my world. An hourly person is up to a grade 14, and grade 15 and up is a salary person. If we said 6 or 7% for the top ones and we said 10% for the bottom ones, that's what I looked at. And it comes out to about the same money. But I don't want to be the one that decides who gets the 10 and who gets the 6. That needs to be up to the staff. That's my feeling on it.
But I don't worry about losing the weakest link. I worry about losing the best link.
Well,
Okay, with that being
again-
said, You don't want to lose the good guy if he's aggravated because somebody else got the same raise he got, and he's a better worker or better whatever. You know, I just think that you're right, that it should be left up to the department heads and more on the merit system than across the board.
I disagree. I mean, all your salary people, none of them work 8 hours. They all work 8 to 10 hours. I'll guarantee you that. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. You know, maybe they should, you know, adjust the percentages, but to be fair to everybody and not cause, oh, you know, I'm going to leave now that I didn't get this or that. And so if you give it across the board, then everybody's happy.
I don't know when we talk about this again. I don't know if we're voting on anything tonight. I think not. But,
Correct, it's not.
you know,
I just wanted
I'd like
to
to
make
hear
sure
what somebody else has got to say. Anybody?
Well, I look at it this way, kind of to what Darren said a while ago. Those who make, you know, if you make $100,000 a year, an 8% raise is $8,000 additional. If you make 75, that's $6,000. But those who make $15 an hour, roughly $30,000 a year, they make $2,400 more with this 8% across the board. And the analogy of a loaf of bread's the same cost for everybody, but $2,400 doesn't go near as far as the $8,000. So to Al's point, if you break it down, and again, it sounds bad, but at the top gets 6%, that's still a significant raise. That's not cutting anybody's throat at any way that I look at it. If you're asking for 8 and we compromise with 6, everyone on the top's getting 6. But when we met, I talked to Mr. Councilman Bear about this, and we kind of came up with something, you know, a step process there. But every time I hear in a parks meeting or anywhere else, it's we can't find someone to fill a position. We keep people, the turnover is in the bottom level. You know, your maintenance worker
Look at-
ones, you know, et cetera.
The list that Shauna sent me, there's 3 open police officer positions. And you know,
Correct.
that is attrition, but, you know, the reality is some of those folks might go somewhere else because they're going to get paid more. So that, 13P or whatever that salary grade is, you know, maybe some more attention needs to be paid there. Maybe some more attention needs to be paid to maintenance worker 1. You know, we're constantly seeing those ads, and I get it. If we're starting those folks at $15 an hour, are we going to get anybody to say yes? I don't think so.
Right. So to my point with that, if we took the top, like Al had just said, and slowly to say, if you're a starting position up to a grade 14, you are a hourly position. And if those people all get a 10% cost of living raise in this budget, those in the middle, 6 to 7%, the top 6%, it actually works out to the same dollar amount in the budget, around that $500,000 to $50,000. I see that advantageous because those are the open positions. Those are the police officers that we hire and retain. Those are the maintenance 1 workers that we hire and retain. And then those just above that, the raise continues. Those who have a family, those who are working here in their 20s and 30s, that get more than $2,400 a year out of this, but more so, and not just, you know, the top gets more, the gap gets bigger if we do it 8% across the board. So that's why the step process to me makes more sense. I agree with Dwayne in the fact that if there was a merit instilled in this, then a department head takes those workers, and those who do an exemplary job get that more merit spot there. So when I asked this last meeting, 6% for everybody, 2% for a merit to give to those who can, but I kind of didn't get any, you know, no support through that. So I'd sure like to see the step process. So those guys who are starting, the starting positions we need, those who are in the trenches each day, 10% here, 10%. And then step as it goes up. Not 0 for anybody, but 10, 8, even at the top, still 6. And again, like I said earlier, 6% is not a slap in the face to anybody. I don't think you're going to find 6% at any other municipality in the St. Louis area. I don't.
Wouldn't you still have the problem, though, that Councilman Reed's talking about, where, okay, in the upper, whatever that is, the upper level, someone who is doing an outstanding job gets the same thing as somebody who maybe isn't.
Well-
I think if you're gonna play with it, to me, to give that base percent, you've already got the evaluations done every year, correct?
Not yet.
Okay, but they're coming. They will come regardless. So they'll come regardless. What I was thinking is if we want to try to compromise, something similar to what you were saying before, okay, you go 6% across the board, and then you look at those evaluations, and if they're in that second to high category, they get 7, the highest category gets 8, no matter where they are, top to bottom. Because I think that same motivation factor that Councilman Reed was talking about is going to apply to everyone. If that's what you're worried about, losing
No,
the
it's
good ones,
exact- That's exactly what I'm talking about. And looking at the numbers, and we've looked at the numbers, and I am not a finance guy. I am a concrete in the dirt, in the ditches. That's all I've ever done. You're that guy, Mark. I am not that guy, but I know common sense, and I'm not seeing a lot of that here. And I looked at these pay scales on stuff like that. I'm looking at guys got 30 years, and somebody that's got 15 is making close to what the guy's making 30 years. I don't know how that happens, but it's not right, and I don't understand it, and it needs to be explained to me. I have a hard time going with this. Like I said, a lot of people, maybe 10%, but I think your department head need to take this into consideration and play the game fair across the board. Everybody gets a raise. I'm okay with that, especially the police officers and guys out there doing that. And if nothing else, make the entry job more money, make it more appealing, okay? Get them in here. And you'll weed through that process as time goes on, if they're a good help or they're not. I know we lose people, and I know everybody is looking for a job. Some people not real hard, and we're looking for good people. Pay the good people what they need, but you have to look clearly through it. You just can't go across the board. I've got a problem with that. I'm sorry, and I'm not going to move on that. But I'm up for everybody getting a raise, but I think we should think about it a little more than what we're doing here right now.
Dwayne, if I hear correctly, you're suggesting don't quote me on this, a 6% for everybody and a 2% merit determined by department heads, or something
Bingo.
similar to that.
I didn't come up with that, but it don't sound bad.
I'm just asking, I'm trying to,
Well, Jeff, and they could do that with what we're saying there, and we're throwing out 6 and 2 and so on. But apparently, staff's telling us that the budget will allow for up almost $600,000.
That's correct. That's 8% across the board.
right.
So those percentages, it may be 7 plus 1 and 2, I don't know. But I think if that amount of money, they're telling us it's there. It's there for us. We don't have to worry about that section. I'd say play with it and get to those same bottom line figures.
Well, we know that the number is, we said 5, but you said closer to 6, right, Darren? That
What's that?
the total number that this raise would mean is closer to 600,000.
600,000. If you
Right.
include all the, you
Right.
got to include FICA and all the other payments.
Correct. So again, I'm still in the camp of, the bottom guys need more, but I also agree with the merit situation where the department heads become part of the raise.
So, yeah, we're all kind of saying the same thing. We're saying reserve that 2% of
For
the
America.
total funds, and you need to decide where it goes based on who needs it most. And maybe some of that is, maybe we've got a top performer, that we need to take care of on the top end too. I'm not saying that's not potential, but
Right.
what I hear meeting after meeting is, we need to get another parks worker, we need to get another water treatment worker, we need to get 3 more police officers. Like we said, those are things that we need to be thinking about in this big bucket, but I don't know that we need to sit here and determine each one of those more than just approving the total amount.
And I'm just saying that we're taking the easy way out here by going across the board. And, you know, I think there's a better way to work it.
Is it possible to tell you a dollar amount to disperse? Or in your case, you're looking at an 8% across the board, and this is what it comes up to be?
That's what we looked, that's where that $600,000 increase to your budget is. That's based on 8% across the board. So I think if I'm hearing correctly, you would like to see some type of that 8% be based upon merit. So if it's 6 and 2 or whatever, and then even if we look at maybe some of the positions, we can take a look at, I think Sean and I could probably sit down and take a look over this week and see if there is maybe some of the positions that we're having a little bit of a challenge hiring, and seeing if there's something that we can do to maybe go ahead and increase that and work that to where we're still at a $600,000 increase, roughly.
I would support that. I have a problem with an 8% across, but, and there should be some merit, whatever those numbers are, I don't know, but, you know, you want to reward somebody that's doing a really nice job.
Well, I think that's what we're trying to say. Whatever we do, let's just be consistent. Let's not sit there and just have so much to where it's, you know, I mean, work has to be done to find the people that we get at a maintenance worker one. And it's all in who has to sit down, go through that interview process to find those people. I mean, that's the part where it gets, that's where hopefully these numbers that we showed you have changed over the last 5 years, so that we're able to go ahead and get quality people in here, driven to go ahead and do the job. And it takes a special person to work in the public sector. There's no doubt about it. And one of the things just to keep in mind too, we haven't had the survey. When we did that back in 2017, one of the things that the staff indicated to us at that time that was a higher priority even than wages were the benefits. So that ranked above it. I mean, don't get me wrong, wages were right behind it, but I mean, benefits were the main thing. So the health insurance plan that we have, and our employees are very smart about how they use that. That's why we've been able to keep our rates negative. You know, there's not been increases over the last 5 years. So I think, you know, keep in mind that, and sometimes that's the challenge for us to find that maintenance worker one, is because they come in, they don't see the value of a health care plan because they might be single and not really worried about that. Right. But it is important to our employees that you have in your workforce today. I guarantee you.
Darren, would it be unrealistic to ask you before that meeting?
No,
or at that meeting to bring us a couple breakouts?
What I will do,
To the same
what
amount.
I would probably do better than that, Mark, is I will email you guys some proposed scenarios of how we could go ahead and do that. So that way we've got some consensus. You've got a long night on the 19th. Sitting there. So, like I said, I'll try to get that to you ahead of time so we get some kind of consensus.
So Darren, refresh my memory. So on these merits, so if I'm maintenance worker number one, who,
We have 1, 2, and 3.
okay. So my department head evaluates me,
Right.
correct?
Uh-huh.
Who evaluates that department head?
I evaluate department heads. We've got different levels. I'll give you like somebody like the Public Works Director, John's position. He is evaluating department heads underneath him. So he's got, I think, Tony, Kevin, and Kevin Hellman over at the airport, for example. The department heads, John himself, that's me. I review all the other department heads that, like I said, that don't have anybody in front of them between there and the city administrator. So I approximately, I think my count is around 9 different department heads that I do performance evaluations for. So,
And who,
and the mayor, the mayor plays the role of for the city administrator position and also the chief of police.
After all the reviews are done by all department heads, the numbers come to Darren and I, and we evaluate those for, you know, if everybody was high performing but that department had trouble, we would want to talk to that department head.
Or if we got,
Those numbers are evaluated after
And if there's scores that we see from a department head where everybody in their department is walking on water, then, you know, there's a discussion of, hey, what's going on here? Are all these people doing really that good? What are you gonna do to motivate them next year? You know, those are the types of conversations we have to have, so.
Well, two things real quick. You know, I came up with the split, and I'm not opposed. I don't know where 6% came out of, but I'm not opposed to it. I'm going to stick to what the newspaper put in, and it's no disrespect to any of you that work in the office. We need more money for the guys and ladies in the trenches, you know, so we can get those. That's what it meant, like Councilman Reed was saying. And we got the 600,000 now, but what happens when we drive into this recession that we're into, and all of a sudden we don't have 600,000 next year?
I would say that the city has tucked away a healthy amount of reserves over the years to go ahead and take care of those situations. And if we may be, that's why, if you don't put it in this year, you may be faced with CPI that's reaching this same number, but your sales tax is down to just 2 to 3%. That may very well happen. And then that's when we have to, like I said, we strive to go ahead and provide cost of living first, to make sure that everybody's buying power stays the same at minimum, stays the same as it was the year before. That's the reason why we did the 8% across the board, just to make sure you understand that. If 10% could be afforded in the budget, we'd do that and have a 2% over the top of the 8. We'd be talking 8 and 2 rather than 6 and 2, or whatever number we come up with. So, you know, those are the things that we have to go ahead and do. But you have the reserves in there. There's been a lot of years where we've sat there, you know, not filled the positions that we had, kept the money, and those monies just go in the reserves at the end of the year. That's right, and rolls right over. So it's saving your money for a rainy day. It's the same concept here. We've got the funds there so that if we miss a mark here or there, we still got the funds to go ahead and do that.
And that was part of and I know you got red-faced at me and a little upset about the car, making the statement about
Well, I
the car.
thought it was ridiculous, but that's
Well,
okay.
I don't still think it's ridiculous. It's like what Jeff was saying, a loaf of bread still costs so much for somebody
right.
that's making 40,000 or making 100,000. The person who's making 100,000 can afford it a lot easier than the person making 40. So, but I just don't want to be sitting here next year going, what do we do?
I don't-
We have no money. That's the only thing, Darren.
I understand.
Can I say something?
We'll get something emailed out to you, some scenarios, okay?
You know, we don't see the checkbook in front of us. We don't, you know, it'd be okay if we had a checkbook right in front of us and I could say, oh, yeah, I got 600,000. I can purchase that right now, you know, so.
Guys, can I say something? Go ahead, Jeff. No, you first.
In an effort to keep it from being another debate next week, I mean, I'm not saying we're not taking a vote tonight, but are people in favor of this 6% cost of living and 2% merit by department heads, or does that need to go somewhere else? I don't want to ask this, and then, Dwayne, you have a different vision, or Mark, you have a different vision of what we think we need to be doing here, and then we're going to debate this again back down to something else in a week from now when we need the budget passed.
You do need to approve the budget at your next
In 2 weeks, I'm sorry, not
2
this
weeks.
week.
Correct.
So,
That's why I say, if we know how much money we have to play with, and he puts together 2 or 3 scenarios as to, okay, this is how that could work out. Yeah, then among those, I say, when we meet the next time, we gotta pick one. We gotta pick the best of those
Right.
3, whatever he comes up with.
right.
And will there be some differences? Probably. But I think we'll be at a point where we have to pick.
I just didn't want to come back in 2 weeks blind and in the same situation we are tonight, and then have to make that decision in a week to pass the budget, so, okay.
We wouldn't do that. Can I say something? Russ, your comment about, I don't know, the implication was there that this is kind of shooting from the hip. Believe me, we've been talking about this for weeks, okay? And quite frankly, you guys, this is not easy, but if we all, everyone in this room, look at the big picture, right now we could be on the other side of the coin. And that's, I understand your concern, Mike, or Mark, that next year might be the other side of the coin. Whereas we're talking about pay cuts, and not having all this money from COVID issues that we're having. But, so I thank you guys for being very, very respectful but passionate in this discussion. I think we can come up with something. But believe me, I was with Delta for 35 years, and it was never a graduated pay increase. It was across the board every year, and every employee in every department, whether it was a pilot, maintenance, supervisor, whatever, it was across the board. And we all knew that. And as long as we got the cost of living adjustment, everybody was happy. We knew though that was the ground rules, because you know that if you keep your nose clean, you put your nose to the grindstone, you show up to work on time, and you work hard, eventually I'm going to be making what my supervisor is going to be making, because I will get promoted. And I see the system that Darren and his staff put in place 5 years ago, you guys. And that's how it works. It's designed to let our supervisors do their job. And yeah, I get it. There is some merit to be 6% and 2%, or whatever it is. But that system, it's a great system, and we've got great people who are manning our department heads, okay? And if we don't, they're going to be subject to the same system that everybody else is. I rate Darren, and I rate Chief Armstrong, okay? I've written many, many effectiveness ratings throughout my life. It hasn't been a while since I've done one, but believe me, that is not an easy process to do, but all of our department heads don't do it willy-nilly. They've had training. They buy into the system. And by golly, if I was an employee, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth out there, but there are a lot worse places that you could be working. And I hope you feel that way, because I see it in your faces every time I come to work, and when I see you out running around. And I run around a lot, usually on my bike. So that's all I got to say.
I'm afraid I don't want to lose any of our management, because I think
too.
they're the best around.
I agree.
And if we don't pay them, then somebody else is going to.
Yeah.
And I don't want that.
That's the fear, because if we do a 6% and a 2% merit, that doesn't keep up with the cost of living, okay? And at some point, where do we keep up with the cost of living adjustment? That's why we chose 8%. Because our revenues for this year are really looking good. But, Mark, you got a point. Maybe next year they won't. I personally don't think so. And let me address this, and I know I'm kind of on a soapbox, you guys. A lot of people in years past have spent a lot of time making our city the way it is. A city that people want to move to, that people want to come to and spend their money. And that is one of the reasons why in this crappy time when getting by is hard, people still want to come and spend money in our town because of what happened in the past. And I've got to believe that we have a system in place in our city government that sets the example for that to continue. I'm done.
I'm not opposed to giving somebody 10%, you know? Make it work.
The biggest concern for me is the top and the bottom, the gap gets bigger and bigger every year if you give 8%. The top's gonna keep getting bigger, and the bottom's that gap's gonna keep widening every single year that happens. And I think
The only thing I would caution you with that, Chad, though, on that remark is your gap was much larger 6-7 years ago than it is today.
I understand that. But we sit at these meetings, and all we hear about is we can't hire people, we can't hire people. And it's the people at the bottom that we can't find workers for, you know?
True.
And I think I think that's what some of our concern is up here.
Okay.
So one other
and-
point, other
and-
than salary, if we can move on, but if you, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in the essence of time,
Yeah.
we have a few minutes before the regular council meeting starts. Items B and CA can be discussed under reported department heads during the regular council meeting. We can go, because they're just discussion items for tonight. The only other item that we need to conclude with before we start the regular council meeting is item 3BA. So, sorry.
Just with the budget as well, the two memos from the last meeting.
Sure.
Comparing the capital projects. I don't know if we have, I know we talked about a list of what we approved, what we put in front of the voters. I just want to make sure we're still staying on track with those, and some of the things that were on there last year are no longer on there, and we know why some of them moved, but it'd be nice to have a more comprehensive list there of what the intent is for next year.
We can do that, and I don't mind saying this at this point either. I've shared this with Doug or whatever. We talked about this right after the election. One of the things that we've looked at is maybe getting the sales tax committee back together this winter to go ahead and see where we're at. You know, what are the projects that we identified? What are the ones we still need to go ahead and do? And just talk about the final 4 years of what needs to be done.
Yeah, we're about halfway through, so.
We're halfway
Would
through
make sense.
this winter,
Okay.
so,
Sorry.
thank you.
And I just want to make one more comment. I want to thank each and every one of you employees that showed up, because I've been sitting up here for 13 years and I've never done this in front of employees. And, but it was good to see your faces, so thank you all for showing up.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Engineering Department, Rabbit Trail and Highway 100 Traffic Study.
Okay. All right, good evening, council. What's that? Oh, sounds good. Okay, so if you recall, approximately a year and a half ago now that we've been working on this Rabbit Trail, Phoenix Center Drive, Highway 100 intersection situation. I've actually looked into it since 2016 when I started here, but it was looked at in 2006 when Phoenix Center Drive, or Phoenix Center 2 was actually put in. If you recall, at that time, Phoenix Center 2, the traffic study that was done there said at a point in the future, that's about as broad as it was, a point in the future, we would need to look at this intersection for improvements. So the question came up was, is that point in the future now? Or when is it? So as we went through that, we did a traffic count study with CBB in 2021, and that was when the bank was going in. So we had the bank, we had the Planet Fitness, but if you recall at that time, there was a commercial component to that bank, but we did not know what that tenant was. We just didn't know. And obviously now it's a Starbucks. So looking at that and discussing with you about how we move forward with some different options, we are going to move forward with that congestion mitigation air quality grant application this winter, CMAQ grant. It is similar to the STP grant project, federal grant project, where you pay basically 20 cents on the dollar to get these things taken care of. It would also include a right turn lane onto westbound 100 on northbound International, and then a right turn lane on southbound International on the westbound 100. That is an item on your comprehensive plan as well. So again, if you pair these things together, it makes a pretty nice CMAQ grant rather than just the standalone situation of Phoenix Center Rabbit Trail on the south side. So with that, I reached out to CBB, I apologize, CBB, and got their thoughts on how good the CMAQ grant would look. They were not excited about it, quite frankly. The original traffic study did not show a huge issue with the intersection, which is typical of what's being necessary for a CMAQ grant. However, with the addition of the turn lanes being added, they felt that it would have some merit to at least put the application in. Now, our staff right now have never done a CMAQ grant. It requires some, air quality, some emission type studies and those type of things. So I reached out to CBB and I asked them, I said, okay, what would it take for you to restudy the intersection with the Starbucks being in essentially, and redo that, and then add those two right turn lanes to see if it would increase that warrant to do something at the intersection. So increase the need a little bit, and in addition, do some additional sketches, drawings, those type of things, so we get a full handle on what this looks like with the adjacent property owner, and then also assist us in putting the grant together. So with that, they have a not-to-exceed amount of $14,600 to get that done. Now, again, like any other thing that your engineering staff does when we're out there working our butts off, is we'll do everything in our power to keep those costs at a minimum, because those are hours that are billed to us. You don't pay a $14,600 check. If we can offset those costs, we do that. We do that every single day. So I just want to keep that in mind. This would be a not-to-exceed number if it was just a blanket, we're going to do it, contract that out. So with that, at the next meeting, I'm just asking that you would accept a $14,600 contract with CBB to redo the traffic counts, to include that Starbucks situation, and then also look at the new traffic signals with the right turn lanes and see what kind of increases, and then also they would assist us with that CMAQ grant. Make sense?
Questions, guys?
Appreciate it.
Yep.
And then we'll discuss the other items at this meeting.
Under reported department head.
All right, thank you all.
Do we need a motion for this?
Yes.
Motion to move to council.
Motion by Patkey to move to council.
Second.
Second by Coulter. More discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Wessels.
Second.
By Holtmeyer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Will be a couple more minutes and we'll start the next meeting.
Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Tuesday, September 6, 2022, 7:05 PM. Bear?
Here.
Briggs?
Here.
Coulter?
Here.
Hydrich?
Here.
Holtmeyer?
Here.
Patke?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Wessels?
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Will all the council members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the council meetings dated August 15th and August 22nd, 2022? Bear?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Here, aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Reed?
Yep.
Wessels?
Aye.
I need a motion.
Need a motion for approval of minutes, you guys. I'm sorry, I missed it. Who made it and who seconded? Chad and Holtmeyer second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, approval of minutes is approved.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. You have the change order number 3 and the final payment request for 2021 4th Street and Fair Street Overlay Project. Final payment request for sanitary sewer slip lining. And we added street excavation right-of-way permit and RFP auditing services to the agenda.
Need a motion.
I make a motion.
Motion by Holtmeyer,
Second.
second by Patke.
Is that on that slip lining?
Yes.
Now, that's the last for this round?
Correct. We are working on the next round as we speak.
Okay.
So,
okay. All right.
our focus there is probably going to be on the east end of town. We're aggressively going after inflow and infiltration.
Okay, we've got a motion. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Your vote, the approval and adjustment is approved.
Priority items, mayor's presentations, appointments, and reappointments, Board of Adjustment appointment.
Do we need a motion for that also? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Hydrich, second by Patke. All those in favor?
Holtmeyer.
Holtmeyer? Okay, Holtmeyer made it. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, Board of Adjustment appointment is complete. And Lori Struberg.
Correct.
Yes.
Washington Area Highway Transportation Committee appointment.
Okay, need a motion to appoint Sandy.
Sandy, Lucy, you still want to do this? Then I'll make a motion.
Are you
Motion
sure?
by
Are you
Pat.
sure she has a
Second
background?
by
Sure you weren't
Coulter.
forced.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I don't have who made the second.
I second.
Thank you.
Mike
Coulter?
did. Coulter. Your basic no-brainer.
Who's Sandy Lucy?
Citizens' comments.
Oh, that's her.
Come on up.
You're a citizen.
I'm a citizen, yeah. Still doing some stuff, though.
What is your name? Where do you live?
Okay,
To the
so
microphone.
my name is Sandy Lucy, and I live at 231 West Main Street in wonderful downtown Washington. So anyway, I'm just going to take a few minutes this evening to talk to you about American Bloom. And because we have new council members, and maybe it's been a while since we've refreshed our memory on everything that American Bloom does, but we will be hosting the National Symposium at the end of the month. Now, by hosting, that means that the actual conference is being held at the Hyatt in St. Louis, down by the Arch, but they will be coming to Washington for one day. It's probably they'll be here for about 8 hours total. And during that time, we will be showing them Washington and entertaining them and just letting them know. And just so that you all know, of all the years that we've been part of American Bloom, Washington has always been very well respected. And, it's not about flowers, which only about flowers. It certainly is to a certain extent about flowers. But we are also always judged on our community vitality, our historic preservation, our environmental efforts. They always want to know from Kevin and probably from John too, how much water we use. Do we waste a lot of water and things like that? And your slip lining and all that kind of stuff helps. And then the overall impression of the community. So, I mean, it's more than just flowers, but we've always ranked very well and scored well. And back in 2017, they asked if I would be interested in, they asked me if we would be interested in hosting American Bloom in 2020, and of course I said yes, and then came home and told everybody we were going to do it. But anyway, but 2020 was COVID, and then 21 they already had somebody else lined up. So well, it didn't happen in 21. So this is really the first year I think that we're coming back to a conference. So. So we're going to be showing them around. Roughly 130 people will be arriving in Washington on Friday, September 30th. They will be arriving by motor coach from St. Louis, and their first stop will be the City Park Pavilion. So I want to kind of give you a rundown so you know what's going on that weekend. And and there we will have some food trucks and local restaurants providing food for sale. They will have to pay for their meal for the luncheon, and we'll have lunch under the pavilion. We'll talk about Runsick Field. We will also be showing them the swimming pool, also our auditorium and the historic significance of that. And then there will be 2 tours after lunch. And one is a walking tour. They will board the bus again, and the walking tour will begin here at City Hall. We'll go through this complex. We will have master gardeners here to talk about the plantings at the libraries, because the library is all taken care of by the master gardeners, and they will be talking about all the significance of what's all planted around this area. Will be a walk down, and we will get to Front Street eventually, walk along Front Street, circle back, go to the depot, and then end up at the farmer's market. And at that point, we will switch tours and go to the other one. So the second tour will leave the pavilion, go out through the fairgrounds, and come out on the north side of the fairgrounds and go past the Nature Reserve, Miller Nature Reserve, Miller Post. And Gavin Woolley will be stepping on the bus at that time and tell everybody about our wonderful nature reserve. And then we'll go on over to All Abilities Park, up to the Angel of Hope Garden, the Cole Miller House. And then we're going to walk around Lions Lake, and we even pass the gazebo, and we even have members of the brass band going to be playing music while they go past the gazebo. So we're bringing them a little music. And then end up at the main stage and hear about how that all came together and worked. And as you all know, and you're part of the team, Washington is very well known for its volunteer spirit. So anytime throughout this tour when we can tell them that Rotary helps us do this, Lions Club helps us do this, the Fair Board does this, I mean, that really gets, people from other communities are always asking, how do you do that? And so we're going to try to show them how we do it, and that. So we have a lot to be proud of, and that's kind of what's going on. So both tours are ending back at the farmer's market around 5 o'clock, and then there'll be happy hour. We'll have music. We'll be showing our local hospitality, and the evening will culminate with a farm-to-table style dinner like we just had on Main Street last week, although this one's going to be catered. We're not going to go with farm-to-table, actually, but it will be set up very, very similar to what that is, and we're going to serve dinner on Main Street as it was just last week for the farm-to-table dinner. So they will be leaving here probably about 8 or 8:30 that evening. So if any of you would like to attend dinner, we certainly, you can let us know by the 15th of the month, because we are looking at our numbers right now at what we have. But if you would like to join in and be there that evening during happy hour or during dinner and be part of the storytelling of what a great community we live in, certainly let us know. Probably let Casey know in the Parks Department. And then, and I just kind of want to let you know the committee members for this are Sally Bachledge, Dave Waymeyer, John Steffens, Carolyn Witt, who's here tonight, John Vietmeyer, Danielle McAfoose, Emily Underdown, Tyler King. Joe has been part of all the planning. And then from the Parks Department, we have Chad Owens, Josh Wargo, Casey Warren, and Wayne. And one other item I wanted to mention is that, you know, because we're doing this for American Bloom, we did receive a sizable amount of money from American Bloom to do this dinner. But there were other things that we wanted to do for the weekend, or for the day while they were here. And so we have, as a committee, raised an additional $5,300 to add to that. And we have received funding from the Tourism Commission, Rotary Club, the Bank of Washington, Bank of Franklin County, Citizens Bank, First State Community Bank, Heritage Community Bank, and Dr. Mark Tobin. So, I mean, we have gone out above what American Bloom has given us to add some other things to the day. Carolyn Witt and Sally Bachledge are providing the commemorative wine glasses, and then all year long, we depend on the Washington Garden Club, the FFA, St. Francis Borgia Church is helping us out for the event. Colton Moritz, the Mizzou Alumni Group, has been working to help us get things spruced up, downtown Washington and the Chamber of Commerce. So it's a lot of people involved in this. So, last note is there's a downtown cleanup day this Friday from noon to 5. If anybody has some time, they can come downtown. It's the last one that we're going to really be sprucing up, mulching and doing some things, probably a little bit of painting and things like that. So if you have time on Friday from noon to 5, just come down and help us get things spruced up. So, any questions? Hope I didn't take too much time. It's good to see you guys.
Thanks for continuing to be an ambassador for us, Sandy.
It should be fun. You know, they're doing they do this mayor's gig every year down at the conference, and this year I get to be the person at the mayor's gig. So anyway, to facilitate the event. So anyway, it should be fun. So anyway, all right, thank you. See ya.
Thank
Let
you.
let Casey know if you want to be part of the dinner, okay? All right, see ya.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. Any other public comments?
Hello, my name's Clint Schneider. I
Can
live
you
in
say your
town,
address, please?
113 Johnson Street. I live just west of Elijah McLean's, and I'm here to just talk about some of the issues that we've been having with some noise that's coming out of the property. It's been pretty significant, even during weeknights. The police have been called several times, and really nothing ever happens. All they can say is that the rules are very vague, and they can just ask them to turn on the music, and that's really it. I feel like, from what I'm seeing in the city codes, that's not true at all, that the rules are very specific. The rules that I think that the police are looking at are in the general ordinances for noise. It's the most obvious one you would look at if you were looking at a noise disturbance. But when, about a year ago, there was a lot of talk about Elijah McLean's getting redistricted from C2 to C3, I did a lot of research on what all that meant. And what I found out is basically every building is subjected to some very specific noise regulations. If you look at Article 3 in your city codes, it spells out stuff for C2 properties. I can show somebody if they want me to specifically do it. I hate to be so specific, but I feel like I need to be. But in there, in Article 4, Section 400.195,
Correct.
it gives very specific examples of how the noise should be measured, where it should be measured, what the decibel reading should be. It's not like a question. It's very specific. And so it's really frustrating me because I looked this up whenever I found out that they could be changing properties about a year ago, but it seems like not everybody understands this, and there's not even they don't even have the ability to measure the sound coming off the property, from what I understand. They don't have a decibel meter or anything like that. From what I can tell, the decibel level should be at a 58. That's an octave band, I suppose. And, I've downloaded the free decibel meters you can get online. I can sit at my kitchen table, and it's in the 80s. Sometimes on Wednesdays, sometimes on Thursdays. Anyway, like a long story short, I just hope that if the police are called in the future, that they're aware of these regulations and they're able to enforce it. And make a clear read, at least make a reading on what's, if it's legal or not. I have a feeling it's not. I think they're far exceeding what they're supposed to be. They have very boldly put a sign up toward our neighborhood that they have a gathering this Saturday. I would imagine it's probably going to be very loud. I would imagine that the police will probably be called. I hope that they're able to enforce that then. So, thank you.
Mr. Snyder, hey, is this outdoor music? Sorry. Is it outdoor music that's happening?
Yeah, it's live
Even on live music outside on the patio?
Yeah.
That's,
And it just goes right off their building. It just reflects right back at us.
gotcha.
Yeah. It's loud. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, if I could speak to that, though. Last week, I was made aware of this issue, and I did find that exact ordinance, so we are aware of that. We are working with the engineering department to purchase or locate a decibel meter to monitor that, so that's in process. So we are well aware of that.
Is this statement true to what you find, that 58 is the legal number? Is that right?
Yeah, it's
Stated in
broken
code?
down based on zoning, yeah.
Okay.
But I think the issue may be the validity. I don't know that downloading an app for a decibel meter should qualify. I think it needs to be, John could probably speak to that better.
Yeah, and I apologize. I was just made aware of this afternoon. We do have a decimal reader in my office. The issue with that reader is when the code was updated in 2017, it doesn't read the exact way that the code states. So we're looking at purchasing an upgraded piece of equipment. Now, when you say purchase a piece of equipment, it's not anything that's crazy expensive. We just have to get that done. I think if you're going to be using that, you need to have it calibrated every year, once a year, every 2 years in order to be administered, in court. I have to probably refer to Mark on that, but calibration does have to be done. The old one that we do have, and again, we can't utilize that with the updated code, but the old one that we do have, we did have to calibrate that every 2 years. So when we get this thing in, we'll have it. I just, like I said, I was made aware of it this afternoon, and we do not have that piece of equipment, to my knowledge, right this second to measure that. So the code's in place. We don't have the tools right now to verify if that is the case, but we're working on getting that.
Just a history for the council too, because prior to 2017, it was completely, I think, up to the police's jurisdiction, their discretion as to
Exactly.
what noise levels were acceptable, what not, et cetera. And it wasn't until 2017 that we modified the zoning code, and it got specific, as the gentleman here just quoted. That's when this is the first time we've had to enforce that. I will tell you, in my knowledge, that we've ever even, because like I said, we don't even have the piece of equipment to do it. So, not an excuse. We will go ahead and get the piece of equipment and go ahead and do the necessary metering from, I think it's on the property line or whatever.
It's specific. I don't know, I
Yeah.
don't remember exactly what it is,
It's on
but
the
it is
code.
very, very specific.
Yeah.
And is there a certain time frame, Chief? Like,
I don't believe the code specifies a time, no.
like a work zone, you.
No,
Yeah.
it-
It
I
doesn't
don't-
give you
no.
leniency during certain hours of or certain days of the week. It just says, here it is. Now, again, we have not enforced that, so we've not seen what's too loud, what's not, is it, how sensitive is it? Those numbers were probably borrowed from another jurisdiction and just incorporated into our code, because I will tell you, we have not enforced that before, so it'll be a learning curve for us as well.
Sure.
Why not?
More public comments.
Okay, I'm Karen Parham, and I live at 111 Johnson Street, next door to Clint, and I really appreciate everything he said, and I'm not going to repeat everything he said, but I really would, I don't know how we're going to address this until we get the decibel meter calibrated and things in effect, because it is a problem, and the thing is I have my windows closed, I have my AC running, I can still hear the music in my house. I tuned it out. I didn't have, I'm lucky I don't have kids to put to bed or my grandson's not with me, but I'm telling you, Elijah McLean's needs to be made aware that there is a noise ordinance and they are responsible for abiding by it because they tried to sue me. It's been dismissed. They tried to sue me because I've called the police once in 2019, once in 2020, and once in 2021 for noise. And they tried to tell me it was illegal for me to call the police and that there was no noise ordinance, and they only targeted me and no one else in the neighborhood that has called the police. Therefore, they had to dismiss the lawsuit. So, of course, I take some of it personally, but I'm not an unreasonable person. I actually like the music, but I don't want to hear it in my house. I don't want to hear it throughout the whole neighborhood. You could hear all the way down at the end of Main Street. So maybe when you guys go into the decibel thing, or maybe the police would just be welcome to come into one of our homes and they can actually witness what we're putting up with. Or if Elijah McLean's would be good neighbors and try it. So, I mean, I have nothing else to say, except my lawyer did drop off the zoning thing to me tonight, and he said, the sound levels shall be measured with the sound level meter and associated octave band filter as prescribed by the American National Standards Institute. He has a whole thing right here, which you guys could pull it up. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
Report of department heads, street excavation right-of-way permit.
Okay, council. Give you a quick history here. Approximately 4 months ago, we were made aware that there was a internet fiber company potentially coming into Washington. I think we discussed this a little bit, but it was kind of an exciting thing. A public service commission utility company are looking into providing fiber to the actual home. That company, Gateway Fiber, is here tonight. They can answer any questions you may have for them and give them an opportunity to just introduce themselves. But they are planning on starting this boring operation, this work, sometime here in October. Part of that is when we were going through how this was going to play out, in the sense of that they're looking to have 8 to 10 boring rigs potentially in town, how that affects our right-of-way, how that affects our public utilities, how that affects private utilities, became a concern, especially from my point of view. The current code basically states that we don't necessarily have jurisdiction to require a permit unless they are doing excavation of a street. So hard surface, concrete, those type of things. If you cut those things, they have to get a permit to do that. They have to put up a bond to do that with the city. If you are boring, subsurface boring parallel down the roadway, so adjacent to curb and gutter, those type of things, and not tearing up any hard surface, we don't have a permit to give, and they can do that basically at their leisure. We see this a lot with, actually Ameren's been doing a lot of that up in the Lake Washington area. They've been burying some lines and things, and they don't get any permits to do that type of work. So there's a gap there, essentially in what we require. I believe that a lot of our citizens want this type of service to their homes, so we don't want to become too big of a hurdle for them. However, when you're burying a line parallel, all your private utilities run perpendicular. They go from the street to the house. So they're boring into those essentially. In addition, there's some concerns of, can we keep up with utility locates? Right now, your city staff does utility locates for water and sewer. We have one person who does that, okay? So when we get permits, we get calls for utility locates that come in, and we're looking at 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet. I have some serious concern that we can even keep up with that production. We have a statute requirement to do utility locates within X amount of time. So I'm concerned about that as well. So we sat down with Spire, Natural Gas. They actually kind of brought this to our attention because they're seeing St. Louis County that they're going to be running into the same issues. And we met with Gateway as well, just to kind of get an idea on what their plan was. Spire provided us an ordinance that Lake St. Louis and O'Fallon were putting in. Basically what that ordinance did was it put permitting restrictions, number of specifically. So for example, Lake St. Louis allows 10 permits issued to one entity at any given moment. So if you go to number 11, well, you have to finish off number 1 first. You can only have 10 open permits at one time. What that did was it kind of throttled the production to some level so that city staff could keep up with, O'Fallon, any other community besides Washington doesn't even have their own utilities, so it's kind of irrelevant. But it's able to keep up with production with our city staff. So we sat down with them, we kind of took what they had, we tried to mash it into what our current ordinance is, with the number one goal being that we don't affect our local contractors. It's not a big shock to the system for them. And we kind of came up with an updated ordinance that I'd like to present to you at the next meeting. I did not get that in your packet because I just kind of wanted to hit some of the highlights. The permit fee for open cut excavation would not change. It's $30. It's just a simple fee. They have a bond that goes with that as well. But directional boring permit fee would be higher than that, though, because we have to be on site a lot more, and we have to be able to recoup some of this cost that we're going to be associated with being out there for inspecting and those type of things. So there's a separate charge for directional boring should you utilize that type of construction. In addition, all utility providers would have to provide a COI to the city identifying who the permittee is and who the subcontractors are. Each right-of-way permit applied shall not exceed 1,500 in lineal feet per permit. So each permit is only good for 1,500 lineal feet. Give you some perspective, a city block is about 300 linear feet. So it's got a broad range there where they can still work. We initially are saying that you could only have 5 excavation permits at one time. After meeting with Gateway, they would prefer if they could get to 7. I have serious concerns about us even being able to keep up with 5, but we're going to do the best we can on doing that with our own staff. So I know there's some back and forth yet. I'm going to be doing that with Gateway over the next couple of weeks as we hone in on this a little bit. And then there's also then I should be speaking to Mike. There's also then a tier kind of violation structure to where if you hit private utilities that are not a gas line, for example, you'd be a tier 1 violation. That essentially requires then an investigation, a sit down with city staff, figure out why this happened, how it won't happen again. A tier 2 would be if it hit a gas utility, because those are obviously a lot higher risk. A tier 2 violation would also have a fee of $2,500 paid to the city. So there'd be a penalty attached to that. Multiple tier 1 violations and multiple tier 2 violations have increasing, penalties to the actual directional boring company or the contractor, to the contractor. So again, it's pretty straightforward about what we're trying to do to try to keep up with some of these things. I'm not saying that we are going to have these issues, but what I've been reading and what I've been told from other entities, they are seeing these problems in other communities, and we're just trying to get out ahead of them. It just provides a layer of assistance, I guess, in ensuring that the contractors are doing what the contractors should be doing and not affecting your private utilities or the public ones that we need to operate the city. Finally, I still have concerns that we're going to be able to keep up with production. I have serious concerns we're going to be able to keep up with production. Right now, today, on utility locates, I cannot get a utility locate done from Spire in 3 weeks. So anytime that we have to put a backhoe in the ground, it's taking me 3 weeks to get a utility locate. That's not us. And the reason for that is just because there's a lot of work going on right now in this market. And it's sapping up the manpower, essentially, it's sucking up the manpower in the region. We operate pretty well from a city standpoint. We take a lot of pride in this. But with this, I have some serious concerns we're going to keep up with that. So this is probably not the last time that you're going to hear about this. We're working with Gateway to figure out how we do this and how we make this as efficient as possible. Simple as we're going to be working in this location for a week allows us to get people on the streets looking about where utility locates could be when they actually get called in. So we're looking at ways to kind of make it more efficient. But just be aware, 8 to 10 drill rigs, that's a lot of work to get done. I mean, there's 110 road miles in this town, and they're going to be pretty aggressive about getting this to the house. So And again, Gateway is here. They've been a great partner so far with staying out ahead of us, or out ahead of this, and at least understanding what their operation is, and we look forward to working with them. Gateway also has some future requests, I believe, for some lease agreements with the city. They have to have some cabinet boxes and things that'll come at a later date. But Crestview Water Tower location may be a spot for one, and negotiating that lease and those things, we're working with that right now. So just be aware that this is going to be a topic of conversation going in the fall. I apologize, that was a lot, but it is a lot.
John, do we have in place some form of penalties like those you mentioned for companies that are boring now?
No,
Before Gateway?
nothing.
That's why we're proposing what we're proposing.
It is, I mean, the best way to describe this is it's the Wild Wild West. We do not have those, we will, if you cut a street or concrete, we do, but we do not have that in any other setting than that.
Good evening, Council. Mark Scarney, Emergency Management Director. In answer to your question, Councilman Wessels, yes, if a gas line is struck, the fire department does pursue the Spillers Pays Act.
Right.
So the contractor, and we're not the only one, you know, typically it's a Spire line if it's a gas line, and Spire will generally charge someone who's struck an unmarked line, an unlocated line, I shouldn't say unlocated, where a locate was not done, not requested. They will generally, not to speak for Spire, but there generally is some charges for those as well. So we do pursue, you know, if it's a flagrant violation.
Okay, and like I said, there's a spokesman with Gateway here tonight. He can kind of introduce himself and give you some background on how much they're going to try to get done production-wise and where they're going to kind of start.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to visit with you guys. We're excited about coming to Washington. My name is Derek Leffer. I'm the head of safety and government affairs for Gateway Fiber. Our plan is to start as early as we can in October. We'll be reaching out to you guys here very soon for some groundbreaking ceremony sort of situations. We've learned a lot. We're a young company. We're locally owned, locally managed, and locally grown. We're just up the road. So we've learned a lot in the short period of time that we've been in existence, and we've grown by leaps and bounds and want to continue to grow. We view this opportunity in any community that we go into as an opportunity to partner with the cities or the counties or any subdivisions that we go into. Our intent, even though the process itself is going to be very disruptive, and you're going to see obvious signs of construction activity, and you're probably going to have some constituent calls and concerns as it relates to that. We're going to do our best to minimize that as best we can. So the sooner we can get in and get it done and get out, the better off things are going to be. That's why we like to get more than a few crews in here at a time. But by and large, we're doing everything that we can. This specific ordinance that John mentioned actually was essentially what we drafted. I don't know how many of you guys know, but there was an incident in O'Fallon where a home blew up. That was one of our contractors that did that. That wasn't following the processes that they needed to follow. That completely changed the future of Gateway and completely changed our mindset, our philosophy, our approach. Whereas before we were just worried about really getting plant in the ground, now we're laser focused on safety. And as a matter of fact, we employ a third party to come in and audit all of before we ever stick a shovel or a drill in the ground. We employ, at great expense to us, a third party to come in and make sure that everything's safe and good to go. Other companies don't do that. But as a result of that incident, we took a hard look at how we were doing things and how we can improve that. And as a result of that, we helped draft much of what you see in that ordinance and fully support that ordinance in its current form. There are some modifications, I think, that we might suggest, but by and large, we're fully supportive of that particular ordinance and want to do everything that we can to work with you. Our intent is not to overload your staff, and we had some conversations with John
and others a couple of weeks or so ago to see how we could work with them, maybe providing some additional resources here in the city so that your folks aren't so overwhelmed. But our intent is to come in here and partner with you as best as we can. And I think your citizens need it. At the end of the day, you look around, you look in your own house and try to figure out how many connected devices you have and the need for broadband. Broadband is an essential service now, just like, water and electricity is. And so we're actually the number 2 ranked in terms of speed, the number 2 ranked fiber company in the entire state of Missouri, and that beats out even people like Google Fiber and those that have much bigger pockets and a much bigger footprint. So we're focused on local stuff. If you guys have a constituent, I'm going to leave my business cards here. If you have a constituent concern or issue, I would much rather you address that to us and say, hey, we're having some issues here or there, and we're happy to look into it and do what we can to mitigate those issues and address those as they come along. So,
Thank you for just saying that, because that's what I was just going to ask.
Sure.
Because that's the problem we have a lot of times. Companies come in, dig, tear up yards, do this, don't put it back the way it should be put back. And so, thank you. So
Yeah.
definitely want to guard.
Yeah, in our restoration process, a lot of times you're going to get concerns from, especially we got some concerns from citizens during the summer. That when we came out to do the restoration, we're required to water it for 3 days. We restore it, we put sod back where it was, and we water it for 3 days, and then the homeowners may not have, done what they needed to do to keep watering it, and it died. And so we would get complaints like that. But if there's ever a complaint or an issue, again, we're local. We're not an AT&T that's a multi-billion-dollar company that's managed somewhere not in Missouri. We want to be here and be a good partner for Union community.
There's a question. If you're coming down the street, whatever street, and I don't know how you guys are working, are you going to have a hookup then if anybody wants it ahead of time? In other words, we want broadband, he wants broadband, and so does he. Are you coming in there, and then at that point in time, are you going to be able to install that to the house or something like that? Or once it's in the ground and there'll be another hookup, let's say down the road, 6 months from now, somebody goes, hey, I want that. So how is it going to work, and how is the homeowner going to be able to use this, and how will it happen?
Yeah, so they can sign up on our website, check availability, and you guys have probably actually seen it. We're starting to market here in the Washington area, and so what we're going to try to do is figure out we're going to get as many people online as quick as we can. So we'll hit those areas where it's really there's a specified interest. And we'll build out. We've got our construction partner here as well. He can speak to more specifics as far as the construction is concerned. But essentially what we'll do is we'll lay the main line in, and then we'll come back in, and we've got to do the cabinets. So he mentioned something about leases on right-of-ways and that sort of thing. We'll have to put the cabinets in, then we'll do the pedestals, and we'll do the drops. So we'll get as many people online as quick as we can, and we understand, because we run into this issue over and over again, where everybody wants it, right? And we're trying to get it to them as quick as they can, but sometimes that's just it's not fast enough. So he can probably elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, so when our engineers have been all over Washington right now for our engineering firm, Utilisource, who does the majority of the designing for Gateway. And the way we build, we do them in fiber hoods. And we try and build that way. If we don't have a customer necessarily, we are built kind of like the way Charter does. It's built for future. So if someone else moves in, all it takes is a drop to the house from our PEDs or handholds that are placed alongside the road on the property lines. So then they can sign up whenever they want. Or like he said, we try and focus on the areas where we do have the interest in the beginning, if that answers your question.
And one of the things that would be very helpful, I think, for us, we're in the process right now. It's very expensive
to build these networks, obviously. We're in the process of applying for some grant applications. So letters from community leaders like yourself, letters of support, would certainly be beneficial. That'll help us, get more dollars for more projects that we can expand. So I actually have a template letter already drafted, and if you guys are interested individually or as a city, and you want to offer kind of a letter of support to say, hey, we support them coming to our community, we like what we see, then by all means, I'm happy to send that to you. And if you guys want to pen that letter and send it back to us, that'd be very helpful. Any other questions for us?
Good luck.
Thank you.
Get her done.
We look forward to it. And again, if we can be a resource for you at all, or if you guys have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to address it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Drive safe. Got one more item.
Do you
Okay.
have any more discussion on it?
No more discussion?
I plan to have an ordinance in front of you at the next meeting.
Okay, great. Sherry?
RFP auditing services?
Within your workshop packet, there was a letter from Mary Sprung. They went out for proposals for auditing services. As you can see, a request for proposals for auditing services sent out to 8 regional firms. One proposal was received. That was from Sickich LLP, which is the same firm the city has used and had in the past. If you'll remember, their name changed. It used to be Hochschild Bloom. Their name changed a few years back. This is for a 5-year contract. Both parties can go ahead and cancel the agreement by giving 90 days written notice. And Mary intends on having an ordinance in front of you, it looks like on the October 3rd city council meeting. So all we're asking for is a motion to move it to, for the next October 3rd council packet.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Wessel, second by Hopemeyer. Any further discussion, you guys, about moving this forward? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
No.
Sherry?
Yes, Council, I have one more thing to add. We are working on, we have, tomorrow, the city has been blessed with a stormwater MS4 audit from Missouri Department of Natural Resources. We'll have 3 days of them sitting down with me and having nice conversations about our stormwater program. So just be aware of that. We'll be visiting various construction sites, going through some of the pros and the cons of what we've been doing. I would fully expect that we will have some fun conversations after that audit to address into the future. Some of those could vary from just how we enforce our stormwater ordinance from a SWIP perspective. Our stormwater permit requires us to visit job sites at least once a month and do complete inspections with the contractors. They are also required to do weekly self-inspections and send those to the cities. So I know in the past we've had some issues with that. I just want to make you aware that kind of what comes out of this audit is what comes out of the audit. Another big thing is they call them post-construction best management practices. Those have the potential to increase development costs. I'll be working with DNR on that. I have some thoughts on how the city can reduce the impact of that to the construction community. But with us being an MS4 and with this being our second audit in the last 4 years, I'm pretty confident that they're going to have some pointed things for us to work on. So just be aware of that.
Thank you. Number 7, I guess, Sherry.
Ordinances and resolutions, an ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the proposal from George L. Crawford and Associates doing business as CBB for professional services associated with the Highway 100 and Rabbit Trail analysis and CMAQ application and amend the 2022 budget.
Hopemeyer.
Forwarded by Hopemeyer.
Okay, Council, at the last meeting, I briefed you on what this was. This is essentially an upgraded traffic study at the Rabbit Trail Phoenix Center Drive International intersection. It would incorporate the commercial user being a Starbucks, which just has additional traffic counts. I don't know what the outcome of that would be. It would also incorporate a right turn lane on westbound 100 onto northbound International, and a right turn lane on southbound International on the westbound 100, which is on your comp plan. This would also allow us to do some additional sketches to figure out how much right-of-way may be required to get some of these things done, to make this intersection a much, first-class intersection. And then it also would allow for the city to work with CBB to put in a CMAQ application, which is a congestion mitigation air quality application. Currently today, the CBB does not believe that we have a very good scoring application at the intersection. However, last year, all CMAQ applications got approved by East West Gateway, so even a poor application has a pretty decent chance, I believe, to get some dollars rather than go through a different funding source, which is much more competitive. So as you all have indicated, I'm doing everything I can to get some monies at that intersection as fast as we can, and not necessarily break our local bank on doing it. So, local bank being us on doing it. So this is just an upgrade to that and allows them to assist us in pulling that application together.
Any discussion before we vote, guys? Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the proposal from George L. Crawford and Associates doing business as CBB for professional services associated with the Highway 100 and Rabbit Trail analysis and CMAQ application and amended 2022 budget. Wessels?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
By your vote, the ordinance passes.
Mayor's report?
I talked a lot up earlier, you guys. I'm about talked out right now, so but thank you for everyone for coming to the meeting tonight.
City Administrator's report?
No report. I do have a few items to discuss in executive session, though.
Council comments?
Okay.
City Attorney's report. Public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Wessels?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Bear?